Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Bienvenido, bienvenue. Welcome, everyone, to this second session of the International Seminar on Social Security organized by Fundación Sol. My name is Kevin Scarrett, and I am the moderator and chair for this second session. And I have a few things to share just to begin to describe a bit about our session today. So we are in the second day of our international seminar. I'm asked to just refresh everyone participating that those of you that have been following, you heard yesterday about what we called mixed systems and systems of Social Security based on individual accounts, as well as hearing from the masterclass delivered by Silvia Federici. And then earlier today, this morning, we saw a discussion about pay-as-you-go systems and the reversal of privatization in Latin America. So now, this session that we're beginning now is going to change geography and switch to cases of privatization and deprivatization, partial or otherwise, in cases in Central and Eastern Europe. And we have a very distinguished group of panelists to share their comments about their own national country experience. And I'm going to introduce them in just a minute. I'll just say very quickly, my own role, I'm actually based in Ottawa, Canada, and I'm a trade union researcher for Canada's largest trade union called CUPE, Canadian Union of Public Employees. And I have a very serious long-term interest in pensions and Social Security. I'm engaged within the labor movement in Canada on our own struggles around I would say, a mixed system, public and private, that has some of its own problems and pressures. But I'm not a panelist for today. I'm just a moderator and a very keen, interested observer, and I'll be trying to guide us through our session today. I'm going to say just very brief introductions of who we're going to hear from on today's panel, and I'll just go in order. We're going to hear from Braňo or Ondruš, who is a graduate of with a master's degree in political science and sociology. This is a man who has worked both as a journalist and as a political advisor. He's also been elected as a deputy, as a member of parliament, and he has spent 2 years two terms elected to parliament at the same time as serving as state secretary for labor, social affairs, and family with the Social Democratic Party of Slovakia. And now currently Braňo is working as an expert for the European Commission. So he has a very serious engagement with pensions and Social Security issues from a perspective of Slovakia. Next, we also have Leokadia Oreziak. Leokadia is a long-time, very experienced academic and an economist. Spent many years teaching as a professor, now a full professor at the Warsaw School of Economics. She has published widely on the economics of pensions and on various issues related to Social Security. People in Latin America may be interested to know that in 2014, 2015, Leokadia was a member of the Presidential Advisory Commission on the pension system in Chile. So she's, I would say, very aware of the system and the situation in Chile and more generally in Latin America. And then finally, from the Czech Republic, we have with us George Šteg, who is a macroeconomist and a lecturer and an academic in Czech Republic. He's been a member of and contributor to a progressive think tank known as CESTA, that's CESTA. And after 2013, he has served as an advisor for the deprivatization of the pension system in Czech Republic. So this is a very active and engaged role in that country. And he indicates that he is, in recent years, continues his activity in a number of European and Czech civic movements and think tanks, research think tanks. So that is our lineup for today. And I am going to really just turn over the panel to each of our speakers. And just to be clear on our session, each speaker is going to present prepared remarks for about 20 minutes, maybe between 15 and 20 minutes. And if we keep to that schedule, that should leave us a good amount of time to have some discussion and an engaged exchange afterwards. And we don't have the technology for questions from the floor, as you all know, but I will do my best to pose questions as an outsider that is not intimately familiar with the specific details of each of these country experiences. So I will try to have put questions that might be in the minds of participants. So with that said, I'm just going to take a minute and make sure I have my sequence correctly lined up. And it will just take me 1 second. Yes. We're going to we're going to proceed in our sequence in the order that the speakers appear in the program, which means starting with Czech Republic and George, and then following that, we will have Leokadia and Braňo. I think that is all that I wanted to say. And I'll just remind our speakers that when we're not speaking, we will turn off our microphone and our camera. Be ready for the follow-up exchange. So with that said, let me ask George if he is ready to turn on his camera and share screen and take it away for that presentation. George, are you okay to go?
Yeah, I am ready. So, do you see everything? Hello, thank you for the invitation. It's very interesting to see how similar or controversial are these issues over the globe. We as Czech Republic are relatively happy because we have succeeded to reverse the privatization of pension systems relatively quickly. I would start with some fast facts about Czech Republic. Located in the center of Europe, we are seventh biggest country in Europe with 10 million inhabitants, and our nominal GDP is about 250 billion of USD, and relatively high GDP per capita, about 40,000 USD per year. Even macroeconomic parameters are not so bad. Our state debt ratio to GDP is 34%, and our taxation is exactly in the average of European Union. It means 36%. What is problematic is the structure of the economy, because there is a strong presentation of foreign investors, and our gross national, our GDP is yearly about 8-10% is going out from Czech Republic. Yeah, so we lose 8%, which has, of course, influence on all public activities, and of course on the pension system as well. Shortly about tax and social contribution structure in Czech Republic, we have very low corporate income tax. Standard is 19%, but after the fall of so-called socialism, we have introduced plenty of stimulation elements for, especially for financial institutions. So we have corporate tax for investment funds just 5%, and even for pension funds is corporate income tax 0%. What is very important that we have some 10 years ago, we have annullated tax on dividends transferred abroad, and it is actually 0%. General added value is 21%. Personal income tax is 21% on gross salary, with special construction of super gross salary, but 21% is that on gross salary. What is very important for the conditions in Czech Republic is that the social insurance is part of state budget. So de facto it's tax, social tax. Yeah, it doesn't have a special chapter inside the budget, and or is not independent on state budget, and it is considered that the surpluses are part of state budget, as it was the last 2 years, and the minuses are paid by other taxpayer and social contribution payers. In general, our pension system is based on pay-as-you-go, and the pension is calculated on base of living minimum and something like notional definite contribution. It's not important, but how it is constructed, it is important that there is some system how to calculate it. We have currently in Czech Republic just 2 pillars of pension system. First pillar is state pensions, which is covering all pensioners, and so-called third pillar, which is state-supported fund system, which serves about 5% of all pensioners, or even less. Just 5% of pensioners' revenues are constructed based on this fund system, but all pensioners are participate on state pensions. Yeah. What is very much important, because the background of the struggle about public services in Czech Republic depended very much on the changes of government or parliament, and after the problems in the last century, we could say that to some degree it has started at 2006, the new era, by right-wing government, which has shocked the system and the public with very strong reduction of corporate taxes, elimination of progressive personal taxation. Then we have had caretaker cabinet, and from 2010 it has started the Chicago Boys cabinet, right-wing cabinet, which has introduced this first step of privatization, which didn't take so much time, fortunately. Then we have had again caretaker cabinet, and then cabinet led by Social Democratic Party has annullated the privatization, or it should be said partial privatization of pension system. Here we can see how it has started. 2010 advisory expert board, which was formatted by the government, by cabinet, but from 12 members, 10 were practically employees of banks and or different funds, not just pension funds, but different financial funds. In 2011, it has started a parliamentary discussion about the plan of partial privatization, and 2 years after that, it was adopted the law on pension reform. You can see the base rules, so entry on voluntary base, reduction of contribution to the public system by 3% for each participant, but each participant should have 5% contributed to this second pillar. Why? Because it was oriented on the people with the highest salaries or rich people, and it wasn't practically interesting for people which were under 2 times of average salary in Czech Republic. It was impossible to step out. Once you have decided, you should continue until you leave this world. And what was very interesting in the beginning, the administration fee for pension funds was 0.5%, but very fast it was increased on 0.9%. In 2013, the police has terminated the activities of this government, and after the election with very small victory of Social Democrats, it was formatted new commission consisted from politicians, experts, and trade unions as well, because trade unions have become a relatively strong part of our public life. The new commission was formatted, has prepared mainly the law on annulation of second pillar. The second task to prepare the, I would say, humanistic leftist pension change, they didn't succeed. And in October 2015, Parliament annullated this second pillar of privatization, the second pillar of pension system. the results of this part. The result of this partial privatization was relatively poor. Just very small part of people has participated. Even the influence on the public pension system or state budget and through state budget to pension system was relatively weak, 0.6%. We were very much afraid of bigger problems. And what was very important for the participant, that the profitability of all pension funds was under inflation rate. So it has just shown that it cannot work in condition of Czech economy. What is more important or more dangerous, that these Chicago boys' ideas, they are still alive, and currently we in Czech Republic see direct attack to the state against the state budget with very strong reduction of personal tax level, and let's say ban on any discussion of increase of corporate tax. So our tax system is very much deformated, and we can expect in next 2 years very big problems, which will most probably result in the next, let's say, attempt to privatize pension and health system, but health system is relatively safe. So the tactic is the same. The history, the short history of pension privatization of pension system was unsuccessful, and the conclusions and lessons from Czech experience are clear, yeah, because the pension systems are slightly above 10% of GDP in the average all over the world. So it's very interesting, especially for financial institutions, to struggle for it. And what is very much important, and our short, relatively limited experience has underlined in Czech Republic, the humanitarian side of the politics needs very much strong leftist political representation. Without it, we cannot rely on anything just on Chicago boys' ideas. So it's very, very shortly, very briefly about our short attempt how to privatize pension system. Luckily, it was unsuccessful until now. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice time.
Thank you, George. That was excellent. Very helpful explanation of the situation, the recent history in Czech Republic. I have a number of questions immediately, but I will hold my questions, and we should continue with the rest of our panel. I'm just going to check because Leokadia, who is lined up as our second speaker, had a connection problem. So I think she has stepped out of our connection and is going to try to reconnect so that her audio works. So because of that, I'm going to just make a bit of a change to the order so we can hopefully have Leokadia connected. I'm going to ask Braňo if he is ready and able to step in right away and offer his presentation, speaking about the Slovakia experience. So Braňo, is that okay? Can you step in? Okay, so again, 20 minutes. I will try to give you a warning if it comes close, or if you go too much after 20 minutes. And you go ahead now.
Please do it. It's always a problem of politicians. Anyway, thank you very much. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. So thank you for inviting me to this So thank you once more for inviting me to this event. I would like to present you pension system in Slovakia. Since our pension system is quite different in comparison with the Czech one. Well, I was already introduced, and I may say that I'm really in touch with the pension system questions in Slovakia right now. Well, so very briefly, the overview about our description about of our pension system. It's a semi-two-pillar system. Semi because in fact we don't have a universal pension system since there is no obligation to be in both in first and second pillar as well. You may see that first pillar is on the is a, let me say, state pillar on the system of pay as you go. So-called second pillar is private investment capitalization system. But according to our law, every working person until 35 years have a time to decide whether she or he wants to be in two-pillar and in both pillar of obligatory system or in first pillar only. So therefore, it is not, let me say, a clear capitalization pension system. We have also third pillar, but I will don't speak about this pillar since this pillar is not obligatory. Our pension reform was made by, as it was in Czech Republic, by right-wing government in 2 years, in 2003 and 2004. The legal base of our pension system are two acts. And this new pension system was effective from the 1st of January 2005. What is important during the change of governments, left-wing governments tried to change what was possible according to political conditions in Slovakia, and therefore, as you can see, during social democratic government was changed the proportion of contributions to the pension system in favor of so-called first pillar. That means in favor of state pay-as-you-go system. Anyway, now we are in a period of a slight increasing of contributions to the second private capitalization pillar till year 2024, and the final share should be 12% and for a pay-as-you-go system, and 6% for a second pillar. Now I will focus on second pillar because this pillar is what we are speaking mainly on, because this pillar is based on collective investment. We have in Slovakia, there are in Slovakia 5 pension funds management companies operating in this system. 4 of them are well known around the world. the last one is the company owned by our non-state post. Every of companies are managing 4 types of funds. The first is with bond, the second with shares, the third is index, and finally mixed bonds and shares, 50% and 50%. What I would like to turn your attention on is the share of assets among the pillars. This is very important for performance of this system. Almost two-thirds of, or more than two-thirds of, almost two-thirds of every clients are in bond funds, and thus is because these bond funds are, let me say, more conservative on the one hand. So that means with the lowest performance. On the other hand, according to our law, only assets in this fund is assured by companies. Is guaranteed by companies, and that's the reason why Slovak savers, let me say, are so conservative. It's very natural in my opinion. Now you can see management costs of this system, and I put it to my presentation just because I want to show how costly for ordinary people the second pillar, the investment pillar of pension system is. In reality, is much more costly than a pay-as-you-go system, and this has also a very big impact on final savings or final revenue of people who are involved in this second pillar. But on the other hand, there are very significant social costs of this pension system. These social costs are around the level of 1% of GDP. You may see that, for example, transfer of contributions, that means transfer from state social insurance company to private management pension funds companies, is around 60 millions till to 1 billion per year. There is a huge amount of money which are transferred from public pension system to private one. And what is important is that the ability of payment for a state social insurance company is guaranteed by government, and therefore government is obliged to cover these transfers because a state social insurance company is responsible for paying pensions in present, and therefore the social costs are very strongly enhanced by costs of loans which are get by the government to cover deficit of state social insurance company or state pension system. That means every taxpayer in Slovakia should or must, through taxes, cover the costs of half or semi-privatization, of part privatization of our pension system. What is very interesting is declining state transfer, because as you can see on this graph, in fact, the better economy of state social insurance company results to the lower need of state transfers to the pay-as-you-go system. But what is but it is interesting. On the one hand, it is good news that we save the state money to cover deficit in a pension system, which is a result of privatization of a part of our pension system. But on the other hand, it is interesting because one of the main arguments for privatization of pension system in Slovakia was that this pay-as-you-go system is not financially sustainable. But as you can see, in fact, the state social insurance company, thanks to its better economy, is able not only to pay quite high pensions, but also to cover deficit of a state pension fund because of transfers to private pillar of a pension system. That means it shows that in fact the state pay-as-you-go system is able fully cover pension needs of Slovakia without any necessity to privatize a part of pension system. On the other hand, fund's performance is very low, is much lower than it was, let me say, promised by right-wing government in Slovakia 15 years ago. And as you can see, the performance, the average evaluation from the beginning of the system in 2005, in year 2005, is in average under the inflation. That means if you say it's saving, because our system is formally called the retirement saving system. That means this private investment system is called saving. So if you are speaking about saving for your future pensions, the reality is that private system is not able by its evaluation even cover inflation, and that means that future pensions which will go from this private system will be in fact much lower than expected and than promised. And once more, as you see, the average evaluation is really very, very low. And what is important, just look at this first, at this blue color, because this is very important. Here are 72% of every people who are involving in the private pension system. That means 72% have their assets in the lowest evaluation funds. And now you can see the concrete result, how looks real pensions, because since according to our law, after 15 years you already are able to get pensions from second pillar, and therefore already 3 years we have first pensioners which who have their pensions from this private pillar of pension system. Technically, pensions are paid by life insurance company. That means after you are in retirement age, you have to ask to transfer your finances from a pension fund management company to the life insurance company, and you have to sign the agreement with the life insurance company, which pay you every month pension. And now you can see how low these private pensions in reality are so because 27 and 31 euro, if you take into consideration that average wage in Slovakia is 1,200 euro. So you can imagine how 27 or 31 euro is low amount. What is more interesting is that the system of of paying the pensions by life insurance companies is so much against the pensioners that you need 25 till 28 years of living to get back what you get to the life insurance company. But reality in Slovakia is 8 years of life and for men and 18 years of life for women in retirement. So that means in reality the math of pensions is so against the ordinary people, the ordinary pensions, that they not only have small amount money at their personal accounts in the second private pillar of pension system, but even this small amount money is not fully transferred into their pensions during their life. And now you can compare how big difference is among private pensions. That means this part of pension which is covered by life insurance company from private system, and for those who have their pensions from pay-as-you-go system only. So in fact, so you can just for your imagination about the real performance and real pensions which are available from a private system. In reality, I will offer you now the real situation of real person, since everyone in Slovakia is in the first pillar, in the pay-as-you-go pillar, and part of people are in both private and pay-as-you-go system. The final pension for every person is for those who are only in pay-as-you-go system is paid only from this system, and for those who are also in private pillar, they get so-called mixed pension. That means pension which is paid from state pay-as-you-go system and this private part you saw on the previous slide. And now this is the real situation of person after 10 years in two-pillar system with the annual income of 0.7 of average, and you may compare two same persons, but on the left is a person with a mixed pension. That means person who 10 years, let me say, saved their future pension in private system, and on the right is a person who stayed only in state pay-as-you-go pension. And since there is a quite complicated system of reduced pension from pay-as-you-go for those who are in both pillars, the result, as you can see, is that finally these two same person, among these two same person is in their retirement age 19 euro different, and this in favor of those who stayed only in a pay-as-you-go system. And this is very concrete example that this mixed system with the private pillar has lower benefit for pensioners than pay-as-you-go only. Yeah. So I'm now already I have to finish. So this is very quickly some data. I hope that this data will be available also for you, since I sent my presentation to you. And these data also show how low performance and how low benefit of private system for pensioners that there is in Slovakia. And finally, I would like to say that two very important points. The problem is that in Slovakia is still massive positive communication about private pensions, and therefore there is a very big media and public opinion pressure on enhancing of private pension system. On the other hand, I must say that already first results which were presented here show that the private pension system has very very bad performance and very low benefit for pensioners, and therefore I must say that for a change of this, we need to change the public opinion, and to change public opinion, we need critical number of low pensions paid. That means I suppose that in about 15 years, we need to have a critical mass of pensioners with low pensions from this two-pillar system, and then this situation will create will get a pressure on politicians to change and to change the system and to re-privatize the system. So sorry I was so long. Thank you very much for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Braňo. No, you weren't over time. That was excellent and much appreciated. I'm just going to check in now with Leokadia. It looks to me like she is connected and she can hear me, and her audio is on. So Leokadia, I will turn it over to you to tell us about the recent situation in Poland. And I'll just remind you, you can when you need to, you can share your screen and call up your slides as you need to. So if that's okay, go ahead, Leokadia.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to share my screen, so please wait a moment. Is my screen seen? Is my screen? Yes, not yet. Okay, if not yet, please wait a moment. Okay. I will try once again. So I have information that maybe I'm not allowed to do this.
If you can see the share screen and it's green, it should be.
It's green, but I have, okay, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
They turned it on, yeah.
Yes, yes. Could you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I will try to enlarge it. Okay, it is seen already?
Perfect. Yes, that's excellent.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank Fundación Sol for the invitation to this seminar. And I would like to say something about experience of pension privatization in Poland. Maybe some historical reflection. So I would like to stress that pension privatization in Poland was one of the most radical and systemic pension reforms in Europe, unfortunately for our country, and it was a significant destruction of social security system. I would like also to stress that Chilean reform was used as a model for that. And as regards the shape of this reform, so there was a new first pillar created. It replaced the old first pillar, old traditional pay system, and this new first pillar is mandatory and based on NDC rules. So it means that pensions are calculated not on the DB, defined benefit, but on this DC rule. So it influences strongly the level of benefits. And the second point of this reform was to create the second mandatory pillar, open pension funds. In Polish, the abbreviation is OFI. And over 20 years ago, it was decided to transfer almost 40% of pension contributions from the state pension system to this second pillar. And also the third pillar was created. And as regard shortly about the background to pension privatization. So it is very important because of that it is very difficult to exit this deprivatize. So generally Poland was very weak, very indebted, dependent on international financial institutions, and also not able to resist lobbying efforts of financial corporations, mainly from the USA and Western Europe. And then generally, Polish democracy was very weak, and there was no genuine social dialogue. And how the mandatory second pillar was established? As stressed already, involvement of international entities. So they were very active in shaping pension and in decision making. And I remember this mass propaganda in Poland that time. This propaganda financed by American organization USAID and the World Bank. And the general goal of this propaganda was to undermine social confidence in the state pension system and to promise a replacement rate about 80%. So difficult to imagine, but supporters of this reform said something like that, unbelievable. And opponents of the pension reform had no real access to media. And as regards contributions, so you can see now in this table that the general pension contribution, 90.52% of the gross monthly wage, was divided into parts. One for the first new pillar and the second part for the second pillar. So you can see that a large part of pension contribution was directed to financial market. And a very short description about the shape of the new first pillar, very neoliberal idea that amount of pension depends only of contributions paid and the average life expectancy. And this principle decided enabled to reduce replacement rate by over 50%. So it was a very sophisticated method to reduce pensions without saying that to the society, because if if people know that, so I suppose that mass social protest would be on the streets, but only after many years, people realized that during this reform, pension from public pillar were reduced by over 50%. And the main problem connected with the creation of the second pillar was because it consisted in creating a huge public debt. So it is a short explanation why it was possible, how it happened. So as already said, approximately 40% of pension contribution was directed to the second pillar, and this created a huge deficit in the social security system. And next, in order to cover this deficit, all governments from that time have had to borrow money on domestic and international markets in order to refund these public institutions this deficit and to enable it to pay actual pensions. And as regards this public debt, according to Ministry of Finance estimations, this transitional period would last more than 60 years, and new additional public debt probably would amount to over 100% of GDP, would amount because there were some changes, simply reversed this idea of privatization. But if there is nothing changed, would be changed, so I suppose that Poland would default many times from that time. And because of this huge burden resulting from the public debt, it was absolutely necessary to change something. And part one of this reversal process was almost 10 years ago, and causes all these changes. So, as I stressed already, huge public debt increased, but it is necessary to also to stress that because of the creation of the second pension pillar, Polish public debt increased enormously. So about half of this increase resulted from the creation of the second pillar. And together with this cause, there was also another one, high losses recorded during the financial crisis. Stock prices at the Warsaw Stock Exchange dropped by 50%, something like that. And some of them have not returned yet to this previous level, to this moment after 13 years of time. And during this part of pension reversal, main measure applied was to reduce by 2/3 pension contribution going to Pillar 2, from 7.3 to 2.3. And 5 percentage points were redirected to a special sub-account in the public system. So it was a very big reduction of the pension contribution going to financial market. And now we can see the effects before the second part of changes. Effects of pension privatization. First of all, pension contributions transferred to pension funds. You see $66 billion. Market value of these contributions managed by private institutions, market value amounted to $96 billion. And Poland had to borrow big amount of money to finance all this project. So you can compare that according to official statistics of Ministry of Finance, $110 billion. It was the cost of this pension pillar, and until January 2014. And what we received from this very big change, very low pension benefits, from $7 to $25 US. First pension from private pillar. And the general effect of changes, the drop in the replacement rate to 25%. The first and the second pillar, according to estimations of the European Commission. So it was a big change, because in the old system there was the replacement rate was 70%, and 2 years ago it was still 55%. So it was dramatic change, I would say, as a result of pension reform introduced over 20 years ago. And it is necessary to also to stress high administrative costs of the second pillar. So fees charged by pension funds companies, the private institutions managing contributions going to the funds. First of all, we should stress the contribution fee. It is very difficult to imagine that many years from the beginning until March 2004, it amounted, this contribution fee, to 10%. So every contribution going to pension fund was reduced at the beginning by 10%. So only 90% was could be directed to further investment. And finally, this contribution fee was reduced to the level 1.75. It is much lower than at the beginning, but anyway, it is very, very high. Asset management fee, 0.6 annually. And generally, from first 15 years, over 10 billion US dollars total amount of fees. And these are beneficiaries of this big change. Maybe you can recognize some names of the international corporations, international financial institutions: ING, Aviva, Amplico, AXA, Generali, Allianz, Egon, Nordea. So they are beneficiaries of this system. And two of them have almost half of pension industry. Their part in pension assets amounts almost to 50%. And at what consisted their activities? So this very sophisticated activity of pension funds manager consisted in investing in treasury bonds and bills. One can imagine how difficult it is. During many years, majority of investment, majority of assets were invested in government bonds, in government securities. So it is absolutely irrational situation, because it consists of that. First, government lost money because this money went to, or is going to, private pension funds. Next, government has a gap in financing social security, so it has to borrow money, and pension funds invest some contributions buying these treasury bonds. So, and they have an opportunity to take contribution fee and management fee because of this irrational, wasteful flow of resources. So generally, Generally, I would say that main beneficiaries, so managing company, financial corporations, and profits for corporations, cost for public finances, risk to pensioners. And the second part of reversal of pension privatization, it was in February 2014. First of all, voluntary membership in OFI. For members, there was a period of choice, the transfer window between April and July, and it is free, voluntary for new entrants to the labor market. Big change also, it was the transfer of over 50% of assets to the state system. And unfortunately, remaining assets left in pension funds. And additional changes, so-called safety slider. So it means gradual monthly transfer of savings from individual accounts to sub-account in the first pillar within 10 years preceding the statutory retirement age of an OFI member. And during this 10 years period, no new pension contributions to the system. And public institution is responsible for payouts, for paying benefits from second and first pillar. And also after this change, there is a total ban on investment in treasury securities. The very important change, new situation from 1st August to 2014. 85% of members decided to return to the state pension system. There was a possibility to choose. Generally, default solution was to return to public institution, and if somebody wanted to remain in office, it was necessary to declare it. So only 15% of members, 2.5 million members, remained in office. What next with OFI? In February, Parliament passed the Act on the liquidation of the funds, but the bill was rejected in March by the Senate. The government promises to submit the same act again. And a few words about the content of this rejected act, because it is very important. It is the idea what will happen in the future. The rejected act provided for the final transfer of assets from OFI to the financial market to private individual pension accounts as a default solution after deducting a fee of 15%. But persons interested in transferring money from OFI to the public institution would have to submit a declaration. There are still in pension funds some assets, $30 billion. And I think that they should be transferred to the state pension system because the final transfer of office assets to financial market planned by the government would be a huge loss for public finances and a real unprecedented donation to financial institutions. A few words only, because we have now too much time. So only before concluding, I would like to say that in spite of this bad experience with a mandatory second pillar, there is a new way of pension privatization, employees' capital pension schemes, PPK, mandatory for all employers and voluntary for employees, but there is an automatic enrollment of employees to the program. So one of the main achievement of behavioral economics is applied here. we can see it is a progress of sciences in the service of financial market. So this also this is a solution will cost public finances, maybe not so huge like like in the second pension pillar, but it will also be costly. It depends on the coverage, how many people will decide to remain in the system. And I would like to underline general risk, because it is necessary absolutely to stress that there is a fundamental failure, fundamental feature of this system, because when population is aging, so higher supply of financial assets and lower demand will contribute to lower rate of returns. So we can expect that in the future there will be a huge problem in financing because of this phenomenon. And as regards benefit rate, I already said it is very low, very low for Poland. And conclusions. Let me conclude. Pension privatization is the road to nowhere. Fortunately, Poland has managed to reduce the compulsory capital pillar by 90%, but the process of its liquidation has not been completed yet. And due to causing enormous public debt, the establishment of OFI can be assessed as a crime on public finances. Poland has suffered huge financial losses due to the privatization of pensions. And at the end, I would like to add that as the privatization of pensions not only doesn't solve the problems related to the aging of the population, but creates new costs and risk. It should be regretted that a new privatization project in the form of employee capital plans is currently being implemented in Poland. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much, Leokadia. That was an excellent summary, very helpful, very detailed, and unfortunately, very disturbing conclusion that the forces in favor of more private pensions continue to reassert themselves in Poland, even after struggles over the pension system. So yes, very helpful. And I will say, I would like to follow up with some discussion, and let me start that with just a couple of reflections on what has been shared. Obviously, the political and economic circumstances in Eastern Europe have a particularity, and not only are they different amongst themselves, but all of these countries have been in a complicated transition to a different structure since the transition of the early 1990s. But what I have heard, and what I would say is a connecting thread across the different national experiences, is the development of these private pillars in which private financial institutions are given a prominent role. And obviously this is the real legacy, as George said at the outset, of the Chicago Boys framework, the full-on private model, or the Chilean model, as others have said. This is the legacy. So I would like to ask the panel a couple of questions about these struggles, and in particular, may I say, the the positive struggles, because clearly you have all described failures and systems that ran into very serious difficulty, or outright a kind of almost a corruption. So there have been clearly social struggles over your systems, and to some degree with some positive outcome, although not as positive as I think you all would like to see. What I want to ask is, who have been the actors? What have been the social forces that have been most important for those social struggles over your pension systems? I speak from Canada from the perspective of a trade union. I work for a trade union, as I said, and in most countries, trade unions play an important role. So I want to ask that, are trade unions playing an important role in your respective countries? And are there other actors? Are there, seniors or retiree organizations that mobilize older people on these issues? And how is the situation viewed by younger people? Are there other civil society organizations or movements that have taken up these struggles in a serious way? So that's my broad question, and I would like to pose it to each of you, and maybe I will go back over the same order and start with George to hear a response from the perspective of the Czech Republic, and then we can go through. So George, if you're able to respond to that.
So the main terrain of the struggle in Czech Republic was definitely the political system. Without victory of Social Democrats, we couldn't do anything. But especially about 2010, 2011, there were very much and very strong social forces because this unhumanistic politics of the government in this time, which was not just only against the pension system, but about public space as general, has increased the poverty, etc., etc. I would say, beside this political terrain, it was rehabilitated the trade unions movement. They have played maybe the decisive role in the let's say civic environment. And we have started in this time different civic movements as well. And these movements were relatively strong in these times between 2010, 2013, 2014. After that, when after Social Democrats have won with small margin the election, it has seemed that it will not be necessary so much the civic movements and public power. And from this time, I would say that the civic elements of society are a little bit in the shadow. So mainly the main critics on the Chicago Boys ideas, especially in last year when the reduction of taxes has started, are trade unions and some rational political parties, even from the right side wing or middle right, because what we see as a trend in Czech Republic is destruction of society and the destruction of state as body which should function, bring some functionality. So 10 years ago, it was civic movements and trade unions. Nowadays, the representative of the positive side of the power, so to say, are the trade unions.
Okay. Let me put the same basic question to Braňo, if he is still with us and able to respond to the same question. I would be curious to hear about Slovakia and whether the same answer would apply or if the situation is different.
It's different, as I already said during my presentation. Different is also in results, as you can see if you compare it with the Poland and Czech Republic. We in Slovakia still have this, let me say, mixed two-pillar system. And even if our private pillar of the pension system is not so strong as it was, for example, in Poland in the past, and also is covering, let me say, only 1/3 of contribution, or get only 1/3 of contributions to the pension system. That means still also in the future, or also present government plans to still to have much stronger pay as you go first pillar, and not to balance these pillars. But take into consideration that we have in Slovakia, let me say, 2.7, 2.8 millions of working people, and 1.7 of them are voluntary, because as I said, till 35 years of age, every worker has an option and not obligation to decide whether she or he wants to be in the private pillar as well. So from 2,700,000 working people, 1,700,000 people are voluntarily involved in both pillars, in state and private at the same time. And it shows how, let me say, a popular private pension system or semi or mixed pension system in Slovakia is. As in Czech Republic, also in Slovakia, trade unions were in fact the only social power which was presented against the privatization of pension system. Just to describe the terrible situation, that time I was the only TV journalist criticizing the privatization of pension system. Really, the only one person in whole Slovakia at the TV screen. In newspapers, we have one left newspaper, daily newspaper, and this newspaper was criticizing also. But at the TV screen, you could find only the one person criticizing the privatization. That means I must really say that the thinking of people, the public awareness was hardly attacked by propaganda, which was led by World Bank mission in Slovakia, and because from these international bodies, the World Bank was the most active in Slovakia in the process of privatization of pension system. And unfortunately, people really did believe that private pensions will be better as a state pension. The one of slogan, advertising slogan in Slovakia was Swiss pensions, and you can imagine that something Swiss is in a financial world is perceived by ordinary people like you will be rich like the Swiss pensioners. So that means unfortunately this this massive brain attack on ordinary people had a result. And still, as I said, still I must say, even when I served as a state secretary, I tried to change the public opinion. But even the Social Democratic Party was not able, because didn't want to fight with the public opinion, or even Social Democratic Party was not able to cancel this system, to destroy this system, just to change the ratio between pay-as-you-go and private pension system in favor of state pay-as-you-go system. We had 3 very massive communication campaigns against or to convince people to leave this second pillar and to go to the pay-as-you-go system only. But anyway, as you see, more than 65% of workers still believe that 2-pillar system will benefit from 2-pillar system. Unfortunately, as I concluded, we really need critical mass of low pensions from this 2-pillar system to convince people that they will not benefit from this system, and therefore we will change the public opinion, and we will make good circumstances for changing at the political level.
Yeah, this is that's very helpful, Braňo, and it's a disturbing conclusion that what you're saying is, we need more negative experience. We need more of a disaster to prove the point that these systems do not work. But I think, in a sense, I think that's a helpful point, and I appreciate all 3 of you in different ways have talked about this issue of propaganda and the communication campaigns that capture the imagination, that convince people that this financialized system, this privatized, private financial institution-based system is going to deliver Swiss pensions for everyone. I appreciate that point. And this is an issue I want to say, even from my own Canadian perspective, we have the same problem. And I know our friends and comrades in Chile have the same problem. And this is the problem of advertising, the problem of having these powerful institutions having access to people's consciousness through the media, through advertising, through far more mechanisms and vehicles to communicate their, I would say, very distorted and inaccurate presentation of the picture to people, to workers, and to low-income people and middle-income people who actually do not have exposure to the kind of critical perspective that you've all provided. I want to ask Leokadia as well if she could share this, because she I think made a similar point about propaganda in support of these proposals. But she also, Leokadia, you also described the struggle to shift and modify and reverse some of the privatization. So could you tell us, Leokadia, about the social forces, the role of trade unions or others in struggling against these pressures?
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. First of all, I would like to stress that the mechanism of establishment of the second pension pillar, or generally privatization, it was and is still the same. First of all, it is consists in presenting public pensions in black colors as not sustainable, and at this background to show that private pension can deliver very good pensions. So this slogan that Braňo said that in Slovakia it was sweet pensions in Poland. In Poland, there was a slogan, "Pensions under palms in exotic countries." So there were big billboards in the whole country before introducing this reform, showing old people resting in the shade in very good climate. It was the main idea. But generally, I would like to stress that the atmosphere and the situation when, for example, in Poland, a large part of social security was privatized. So generally, there was widespread belief that market and everything with market is better than the state and the state benefits. So if we take into account also the bad economic and political situation of Poland, so we can imagine that international financial institutions hope to settle here and to have a source for their profits for decades. And that's why they were able, especially World Bank, to finance all this propaganda. I remember everything what happened that time. They financed a lot of propaganda's activity and different form of influence of the supporters on the society. For example, politicians, journalists, media, professors, and most important decision-making people were corrupted, simply corrupted. And one of the form of the corruption was to organize, to finance for them excursions to Chile, to Argentina, something like that, in order to show how the privatized systems function in such countries. But it was the form of corruption. And generally, it is contradicts democratic idea and principles to establish the system without social dialogue, without social information. So it was absolutely unjust, unhonest, I would say like that. But let's look at this process of deprivatization. What was the forces standing behind it? Generally, I would say it is difficult to find any forces standing behind this. It may be leftist parties and trade unions, but their influence was not strong. So I think the most important factor that contributed to this process of reversal was deteriorating situation of public finances. So there was a severe risk that Poland will become insolvent, simply insolvent. It was in the time when there was strong and very huge crisis on financial markets. It was very difficult to borrow money to finance public debts. So it was absolutely necessary for government to do this. I regret very much that it stopped at the halfway, because it could do all. It could do 100% to liquidate, to dismantle the system totally. But I think the elite class and financial institution, people connected with this, and generally with big capital, they are interested in maintaining something like that. So and they have influence on mainstream media, and generally they can finance everything supporting supporting durability of the system, and people who are against generally are a lot of difficulties to present their opinion in press, in TV, in media, and so on. So I would say that it was a real miracle that 10 years ago, one of the mainstream magazines, Politica, published my article under the title "Liquidate Often," this title. And I think this article was able to begin the discussion in Poland, and people begin to think what is the problem, because many years passed after the introduction of the system, and everything looked good. But when the first benefits from the new system began to be being paid, so people realized that these benefits are very low. And if we connect all these losses on the stock exchange during the crisis, so the knowledge of the what is the system is became more widespread. But many years of propaganda changed minds, especially of young people. So after these changes that took place 6 years ago, so a lot of people criticized this step made by government, this shifting of assets to the state system. It was strongly criticized, and young people until now they think that it was a bad step. They don't realize at what the system consists and what are the problems connected with it. So not easy to change the system, and I think during this new wave of privatization with employees capital plans, the same argument is presented. It is said that the public pension system is not sustainable. It is not able to pay sufficient pensions. So that's why people should save on the financial market. Yes, and it is the only argument, because there are no other arguments. And this one is easy to understand for ordinary people. And I think such a new wave of privatization of pensions in Poland, so it is continuation of neoliberal policy that has its roots many years ago, 30 years ago, but it is still continued in Poland. It is continued, and I think it will cause also a huge losses in public finance, in private finance, and I said, as I said in my presentation, it is the road to nowhere.
Yes.
To nowhere.
I appreciate that, and I think that was the conclusion that I take from your presentation. But frankly, from all of the presentations and every experience I've seen with a privatized pension system, I think that is exactly the conclusion we should draw. We don't have much more time. I've only got time for one more question with very short answers. If I could ask you to speak briefly, I just want to make a point and put the last question to you all. I have to say I was very interested in Leokadia reported in one chart a breakdown of the asset and the investments of these private institutions, and very disturbing to see that essentially this was a game where these contributions were being channeled into treasury bills. That sounds like a ridiculous system. Unfortunately, I want to say one thing about the Canadian system. Rather than that kind of ripoff, I would say, or very bad deal, in the large Canadian pension funds, what they have been doing with their assets is actually moving away from stock markets or bond markets, and certainly they're not in treasury bills. What they have been doing instead is moving into private equity and hedge funds, and in particular, what is called public infrastructure. So, one of our famous pension funds in Canada, our Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, owns a very significant portion of the water system, the privatized water system in Chile, and also in the United Kingdom and in other countries that have been unwisely privatizing their public infrastructure, airports and energy and highways and transportation, an increasing range of public infrastructure. And I think this is, another part of the disaster of privatization and neoliberal policy. And it's disturbing for me and those of us in Canada to see that our own pension funds have become an engine and a very significant player in actually driving forward policies to privatize more and more of this kind of infrastructure. So private pension investors are pushing privatization of other kinds of assets, and it becomes a self-reinforcing loop. So I wanted to make that point, but also ask back to all of you, and this is the last round, and I'll ask you to speak briefly. Could you say just something final about the financial players involved in your system, these private financial institutions? Because it sounds to me like they are playing a role in shaping and influencing your government policy. And is that the case? And is it also the case that international financial players, I see in Poland that there are international companies that are playing a central role, are they influencing government policy? And is part of the problem this role of international financial capital, influencing and shaping your domestic public policy on pensions? So maybe we'll go through the same sequence. And again, final comment from George, and then Braňo, and then Leokadia. So George, can you answer that in just a minute or two?
Yeah, in Czech Republic, the financial institutions like funds don't play very much significant role because of the role is completely in banks' hands, yeah. So we don't have this fund infrastructure from pension funds to hedge funds, etc., etc. But because of the role of banks in Czech economy, which is undercapitalized in general, yeah, with practically no role of stock exchange, the banks are the bottleneck which practically makes the money flow to the economy and vice versa, okay. Unfortunately, because from 45 or something like this, 43 banks in Czech Republic, 43 less one, so X less one, are foreign companies which play their games through financing the Czech economy. Yeah, so in this sense, funds don't play such a role.
Okay.
Of course, all expert bodies which have some influence on the government, on the parliament, and the general public as well, are constituted from bank employees or representatives of banks. Yeah,
Okay.
we have, for example, a so-called budget board, which is based on Czech law, which has to follow and to give solution how to keep state budget in healthy conditions.
Okay.
It has 11 members, 7 from that are bank employees.
Okay.
That's it. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's helpful. It may not be the pension fund investors, but what I take from that is it's through the banking system that the financial industry is able to exercise a certain power in Czech Republic. Braňo, are you able to answer the same question? But I will ask you to just do it in a minute if you can.
In fact, the situation is similar to Czech Republic. So the private pension funds are not so strong in the society as such, but they are focusing on holding their position in a pension system. And I must say that not in everything what government decides, but every decisions which are connected or which are focused on pension system are very deeply influenced by pension funds.
Okay, very good. And then finally, Leokadia, can you give me 1 minute on my question about the role of these institutions?
I'm afraid that the role of these institutions is big, but it is hidden generally. The general public is not able to see how it functions, but it exists. It exists, and I would add that pension privatization is very helpful to oligarchization of the economy. So the class of oligarch, because we can not directly see how very few people become richer and richer because of that, and they are stronger and stronger and have more and more influence on ruling parties, on ruling politicians. And I think it is a big threat to democracy, in spite of the fact that pension privatization creates inequalities and people who are in difficult situation easily can support every autocrats and dictatorship. They are able to support this, but the second channel of the attack on democracy is this class of privileged people who can take profits from all this process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Leokadia. Thank you very much. And thank you to all 3 of you. Just on that last point, I'll make only one comment, and maybe this is the concluding comment. What I interpret and take from all 3 of our presentations and all 3 of these national country experiences is, of course, the moves that were taken to privatize these social security systems were all a problem and in some cases a disaster. But there are social struggles that have taken different forms that have at least partly reversed some of the worst of those systems and replaced them back with a more public system or a pay-as-you-go system, which has proven repeatedly to be more stable and more successful. And I can say the same thing for Canada. But what I take from the presentations is that the struggle against private Chicago Boys style systems has to be not just a technical struggle over the design of the pension system, but this is also directly connected, as Leokadia just said, to the struggle to democratize our societies and our governments. Because of course, if we're not able to gain social democratic control over our governments and our states, we are not going to be able to build confidence of the general public and of workers that a publicly run system that is not privatized is something that we can have confidence in and that we can rely on. So these are anti-privatization struggles that by necessity have to be pro-democracy struggles and struggles against the evolution of an oligarchic system, as Leokadia put it, I think, very well. So with that said, I think we can draw this session to a close. On behalf of the panel, I want to thank all of you for listening, and I want to thank Fundación Sol for organizing this very important session. I think we need to constantly be comparing and drawing lessons from different international experiences. So I thank you all and thank our panelists. And I wish you a good remainder to the rest of your conference. And yes, I agree with Leokadia. No más AFP, no more private pension systems for anyone in the world. Thank you all. Gracias. And I wish you all a good seminar and a good conference.
Thank you very much. Thank you.